Hey there, my name is Anthony, and I'm a part of the upcoming 2210 Turing backend cohort. That was a mouthful. And at the end of Mod 0, Turing recommended that we dive into this Ruby exercises repository on the Turing GitHub. So, since I've done a couple of these to get into the engineering environment and dive in and prepare for Turing, figured it'd be cool to just go through in case anyone hasn't gotten started on these yet and are curious how to dive in. So what we need to do is find the repository, which is at github.com/turing-school/ruby-exercises right there. And what I would recommend doing is forking this to your own GitHub so you can practice committing and pushing, and get lots of reps in for that. They say you don't need to do that. You can just clone it, which is true. But if you fork it, you'll actually be able to push changes and, get practice with that. So up here, you can click to fork, and then you're going to do this step, which would be from there, grab the SSH code. I'm currently in the place where I keep my projects. And so navigate into your project folder, whatever you want. And then you're just going to git clone that SSH, assuming you have your Git all set up in terminal. I'll just take a second, ls to see what we're looking at here. And then we are going to change directory into Ruby exercises. Now, per this README here, which you should absolutely read, you need to install the bundler gem. And so I already did this, but you're just going to do from within the project folder, gem, install bundler, and then hit enter. In fact, I don't think it'll hurt anything if I do that. Okay. Your list will be longer if you haven't done this yet. You'll install a bunch of things that are great. And then it will go down to the next thing, which I believe you're going to need to do to have RSpec installed globally, which is just gem install RSpec. Okay. Hit that. Again, yours will be a little bit longer and good to go. Cool. At this point, we are done with this part. There's some troubleshooting at the bottom of the README here. If you need any help, kind of work through some of that. And then what I like to do is just atom period, and that will open the entire folder tree in our favorite text editor, Atom. Okay. Already got some stuff open here. So over on the left, your short key is Command / to open and close that. I would recommend starting with the data types folder. You're eventually going to work through all of this if you want to. And then strings. And here's the README for the strings project. You can read this on your own, but I'm going to walk you through doing it. So maybe you don't need to do that right now if you're watching this video. So I'm opening the spec directory here, and then strings_spec.rb. If you happen to want to open two things in Atom at once, don't open two Atom windows, just right click on the file and then split left or split right. And then you have both of your files. You have your instructions here, and then you have your other folder on the right, or sorry, your other file on the right here. A little cramped with my increased space, so I'm gonna remove that and we're gonna start working through. Okay, here we go. Right now we're looking at a test file or a spec file, and there's no partner file, so there's no other main file that this one is testing. You can do that, that's normally how it's set up, but this one is all about just making this one run properly. You can see at the top, using the RSpec class with a describe method. The strings string is describing the name of the class that we are testing with this file. And then each individual one is a test within this file. You'll notice the difference here because it, XIT, what's up with that? Well, that is just turning off that test for the time being. You can enable this test by removing the X. So as you move along, you will enable each one down the line. All right. So the first thing to do here with getting this to pass is let's run the files. Okay, so to run this, I'm going to navigate into the root directory, which is data types. We're going to change into the strings directory and then right there. So you always want to run your spec files from the root directory is my understanding of this. So you would do RSpec. I like to do the FD flag because that gives a nice clean breakdown of all the tests. Spec and strings underscore spec.rb. And so that file name that I'm running is this right here, strings underscore spec.rb, the file we're working in. Okay, hit enter. There we go. So going back up here, you can see that all of these tests here, this is the description that I did with the FD here at the top. And then it has a breakdown of temporarily skipped. Temporarily skipped, you can see this corresponds with test 2, strings test 2, strings test 3. They are skipped. But we have one that is not skipped, which is right here. In this case, it did not work because there's stuff missing. So let's follow the instructions really quick. In place of the line below, call a method on the name variable defined above to achieve the expected output. So the expected output here is Alice, and that's a string with a capital A, and name is Alice with no capital A there. So we're expecting actual, which is this, to be equal to expected. How are we going to do that? Going to use a method, probably one you're familiar with, just capitalize. All right, and then we're going to come back and run this beautiful test again, and we have no failures at all right there. 0 failures, 22 pending. So come back and then go to test 2, enable it. So you maybe see the process now. Place of the line below, call a method to achieve the expected output. So we're going to do, we have a crazy capitalization here like that. And we're going to run the method. This is the yelling method, which is uppercase. All right. And then we're going to come back over, run the test again. There you go. Now, I went a little bit wrong there. What you're technically supposed to do is always run the test before. So it's this idea of red, green, refactor. So run the test, let it not pass, write your code, get the test to green so that it passes. And then once you have that passing, then you can refactor it and you can make it better and improve the code or clean it up and then make sure the test still passes. That's the whole mindset around testing and test-driven development. Right, so I'm going to do exactly what I just said. I enabled test 3. And of course, we did not pass because there's nothing here. So I'm going to do actual, and in this case, we want to make it all lowercase or downcase in this example. So I'm going to hit up on the keyboard to bring back my last command. And it passes. There we go. Okay. So this is generally what you're going to do. So you're just going to enable a test, run it, see that it does not pass, strings test 4. And then you're going to come here and figure out how to do it. So let's say, for example, you don't know the method. All right, so you don't know like how to do it or what it's going to take. This is where the process of problem solving for software engineers or developers comes into play, and your Google foo, right? So this is going to be rhyme dot something. And so Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, and the expected output is that completely switched, completely flipped. So let's say that we don't know exactly how to do that. We're going to go to Google, flip a string in Ruby. Okay, so our first thing here, the language I knew was flip, but it immediately came up with reverse. Return a new string with the characters from the given string in reverse order. So this happened to be on the very first thing here. Sometimes we need to dig around a little bit, but let's just try doing that again. So reverse a string in Ruby. Now that we have better language to use, we'll do that. So right here, the very first thing, this is coming up. It's string dot reverse. Nice. So let's give that a try. I'm going to use the string method reverse and then come back over, run the test. Look at that. It works. Beautiful. So that is the gist of this. And then you have a lot of this stuff to work through. There's a lot of stuff here once you finish this one with lots of tests, lots of files. Okay. You can move on to something like integers and floats or collections. For example, let's just pop into the arrays spec. I'll do the same over here. See collections. Okay. Again, you see the same pattern here where they're disabled. So in the line below, create a new empty array. There are a couple ways to do this. One is just brand new empty array like that. And we will spec, let's arrays spec. Remember that I navigated into this folder, but not all the way into the spec. You want to run those from outside and then use the spec / to get into the proper place to run the file. Nice, it passed because I did not run it before fixing it. So I'm going to enable this one here. Run it again, it does not pass. So we're going to make this do something. In the line below, create an array with the numbers 1 through 5. So, you know, there's a couple different ways to do that. Now, the very direct way would just be copying that, obviously. See if that passes. It does indeed pass, but there's some other interesting ways to do this too, I think. I wonder what happens if we do that. No, that did not work. That did not work at all. In fact, I think we have to do these kind of brackets for that. Yeah. Maybe try the toArray method. Look at that. So in this case, we used a range that is inclusive range. So it includes the first because it only has 2 dots there. So it went from 1 to 5, and that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're taking that range and applying the toArray method to it, which properly generates the array. Nice. All right, so you can get the idea here. It's going to take some Googling. It's going to take some effort to work through, but you just want to do one at a time. And this is definitely something that's super helpful to do. Just several of them a day, or sit down for half an hour and do as many of them as you can in a row. And then I highly recommend taking notes as well. So whenever you come up with a new array method or something, is that you learn, just write it on your list, just write it on the list, work through. And that way you start memorizing different array methods, or just kind of noting things. And that's it, man. You can commit your work here, push it back up to your GitHub repository, and start working through. I'll probably do a separate video on some of the mythical creatures and some of that, but for now, this is the way to go. If you have any questions, hit me up in the Turing Slack. I am Anthony Ungaro, same name as you're probably seeing on this video. So take care, hope you have a good one, and be well. Good luck.